You woke up this morning thinking about your day, your tasks, your responsibilities, what you need to accomplish, what you hope to avoid. But underneath all of that, something else was happening. Something you didn't notice. A quiet conversation, a subtle influence, a gentle pull in a specific direction. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within, and it's been there your entire life. Most people live their whole lives without realizing they're not thinking their thoughts. Their thoughts are thinking them. They're not making choices. Their patterns are making choices for them. They're not living their life. They're being lived by invisible forces they never questioned. This is the war nobody talks about. The war that determines everything else. The war inside your mind. Not the loud, obvious battles. Not the dramatic confrontations. But the quiet, constant struggle between two versions of yourself. The version that stays small, plays safe, and survives. And the version that risks, grows, and truly lives. Every single day, these two versions compete for control. One whispers limitations. The other suggests possibilities. One fears change. The other craves growth. One protects what you have. The other reaches for what you could become. And here's what makes this war invisible. Both voices sound like you. They use your vocabulary, your memories, your logic, so you never question them. You just follow whichever voice is louder that day. Some days, you feel unstoppable, clear, confident, certain. Those are the days when the right voice wins. Other days, you feel stuck, doubtful, overwhelmed. Those are the days when the wrong voice dominates. But you don't realize there's a war happening. You just think, this is how I feel today. The purpose of this audiobook is to make the invisible visible, to show you the war you've been fighting unconsciously, to teach you how to fight it consciously, and ultimately, to give you the tools to win it consistently. This isn't about positive thinking. It's not about affirmations or mantras or pretending everything is fine. This is about understanding the actual mechanisms of your mind, the real patterns, the true forces, and learning to direct them deliberately instead of being directed by them unconsciously. By the end, you won't just understand this war. You'll know how to fight it, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice, until the right voice becomes your default, until growth becomes your nature, until victory becomes your pattern. The war has always been there. Now it's time to learn how to win it. Chapter 1. The Enemy You've Never Met. Let me tell you about someone I knew. We'll call him Marcus. Marcus was smart, talented, hard-working. On paper, he had everything going for him. Good education, solid career, supportive family. Yet somehow, despite all these advantages, Marcus stayed stuck for years. Same job, same city, same routines, same complaints, same unfulfilled dreams. His friends couldn't understand it. Why doesn't Marcus just go for that promotion? Why doesn't he start that business he always talks about? Why doesn't he ask her out? Why doesn't he move to the city he claims he wants to live in? Marcus had explanations, always good ones, logical ones. The timing isn't right. I need more experience. The market isn't ready. She's probably not interested. Moving is complicated. But the real reason? Marcus had an enemy he'd never met, an enemy he didn't know existed. And this enemy defeated him every single day without Marcus ever realizing there was a battle happening. This enemy wasn't a person, wasn't a circumstance, wasn't bad luck or a limited opportunity. This enemy lived inside Marcus's mind, and it had one job: keep Marcus exactly where he was. Keep him safe, keep him small, keep him from ever risking enough to truly fail or truly succeed. This enemy had many weapons, but its favorite was a simple question: what if you're not good enough? Every time Marcus thought about pursuing something meaningful, this question appeared. Sometimes loud, sometimes whisper quiet, but always there. What if you apply for that position and they reject you? What if you start that business and it fails? What if you approach her and she says no? What if you move and it's worse than here? And here's what made this enemy so effective. It sounded like wisdom, like prudence, like Marcus being smart and realistic. It presented itself as protection, as careful planning, as intelligent risk assessment. So Marcus listened and stayed stuck. Year after year, the enemy wasn't trying to hurt Marcus. It was trying to protect him. But protection taken too far becomes a prison. Safety pursued too intensely becomes stagnation. And Marcus, like most people, never realized he was locked in a cell of his own mental making. Now here's the important part. Marcus isn't unusual. Marcus is normal. Everyone has this enemy. Everyone has this voice. The voice that sounds like reason but functions as limitation. The voice that seems like self-awareness but operates as self-sabotage. Maybe you recognize it in yourself. The voice that says you should wait, that now isn't the time, that you need more preparation, more certainty, more proof. The voice that finds perfectly logical reasons why your dreams need to stay dreams, why your goals need to stay distant, why your potential needs to stay potential. This voice has probably been with you so long you think it is you. You think these thoughts are your actual assessment of reality, your genuine beliefs about yourself and your capabilities. But they're not. They're the enemy. And the enemy's job is to keep you safe, even if safety means never really living. The first step in winning this war is recognizing that the voice exists, that it's not you, that it's not truth, that it's a pattern, a mechanism, a function. And like any function, it can be understood, managed, and ultimately overridden. Marcus eventually figured this out. It took him until age 37, but he finally saw the enemy, finally recognized the voice. And once he saw it, he could fight it, not by arguing with it, not by proving it wrong, but by simply choosing to act despite it. He applied for the promotion. The voice screamed. He applied anyway. He started the side business. The voice predicted failure. He continued anyway. He asked her out. The voice said she'd reject him. He asked anyway. Some of these actions succeeded. Some failed. But Marcus discovered something crucial. The voice's predictions were almost never accurate. Most of the catastrophes it promised never materialized. Most of the rejections never happened. And even when they did, they were survivable, manageable, often useful. The voice's power came from never being tested, from Marcus always listening, always obeying, always staying safe. But once Marcus started acting despite the voice, its power dissolved. It still spoke, still suggested caution, still predicted disaster. But Marcus stopped believing it, stopped obeying it, stopped letting it make his decisions. Within 2 years, Marcus's life transformed. Not because he suddenly became smarter or more talented, but because he stopped fighting with one arm tied behind his back. He stopped letting the enemy win by default. He entered the war consciously, and conscious warriors beat unconscious prisoners every time. You have the same enemy. Right now, as you listen to this, it's there. Maybe it's telling you this audiobook is interesting, but won't really change anything. Maybe it's suggesting you're different from Marcus. Your situation is more complicated. Your obstacles are real, not mental. That's the enemy talking. Recognize it. Name it. See it for what it is. A pattern designed to keep you safe by keeping you stuck. And then make a choice. Will you keep listening? Keep obeying? Keep letting it run your life? Or will you do what Marcus did? Acknowledge the voice. Thank it for its concern. And then act anyway. The enemy isn't going away. But you don't need it to. You just need to stop believing everything it says. Stop following every suggestion it makes. Stop letting it determine which version of your life you get to live. This is your first weapon, recognition. The war begins with seeing that there is a war, that there is an enemy, that the limitations you experience aren't always external reality. Often, they're internal programming, and programming can be reprogrammed. Marcus is 42 now, living in a different city, running his own company, married to that woman he was afraid to approach. The voice is still there, still offering caution, still predicting problems. But Marcus doesn't fight it anymore, doesn't argue with it, doesn't try to make it go away. He just thanks it for its input and makes his own decisions. That's the relationship you're building. Not victory over the enemy through elimination, but victory through conscious choice. The enemy gets to speak. You get to decide whether to listen. Welcome to the war. Now let's learn how to win it. Chapter 2, Your Hidden Ally. If there's an enemy, there must be an ally. And there is. But here's the problem. Most people can barely hear their ally. It speaks quietly, calmly, without urgency or drama. So it gets drowned out by the enemy's constant noise. Your ally is the voice that says, "You can handle this." Not aggressively, not loudly, just matter-of-factly, like it's stating obvious truth. While your enemy spends hours building elaborate cases for why you can't, shouldn't, or won't succeed, your ally simply suggests, "Try and see what happens." While your enemy catalogs every past failure as proof for future inadequacy, your ally reminds you, you've grown since then. The ally doesn't fight with the enemy, doesn't argue, doesn't defend. It just offers a different perspective, a different possibility, a different path. Think about a time when you accomplished something difficult, learned a complex skill, overcame a real obstacle. In that moment when you succeeded, which voice was proven right? The enemy who said you couldn't, or the ally who said you could? The ally's track record is actually remarkable. Nearly every significant achievement in your life happened because you listened to it instead of the enemy. Every skill you've mastered, every relationship you've built, every challenge you've overcome, the ally guided you there. Yet somehow, the enemy remains more influential. Why? Because the enemy offers something seductive, certainty. It promises you can avoid pain, rejection, and failure by simply not trying. It offers guaranteed safety through guaranteed limitation. And humans crave certainty, even when that certainty is certain stagnation. The ally offers something less comfortable, possibility. It says you might succeed, you might fail, you might learn, you might grow. You will know until you try. There's no guarantee except the guarantee that trying yields data and data yields growth. The enemy says, "Stay here. It's safe." The ally says, "Go there. It's uncertain but possible." One offers comfortable death. The other offers uncomfortable life. And most people, without realizing it, choose comfortable death. Your ally doesn't get dramatic about this, doesn't judge you for choosing safety, doesn't guilt you for listening to the enemy. It just quietly waits, always ready, always available, always offering an alternative perspective when you're ready to hear it. Here's how to recognize your ally's voice. The ally suggests actions. The enemy suggests avoidance. The ally asks how. The enemy asks why bother. The ally sees capability. The enemy sees limitation. The ally references growth. The enemy references past failure. The ally feels like calm possibility. The enemy feels like anxious certainty. Most importantly, the ally's suggestions usually make you slightly uncomfortable. Not terrified, not overwhelmed, just stretched, like trying something that's just beyond your current comfort zone. That slight discomfort is how you know it's the ally speaking. It's inviting you to grow. The enemy's suggestions feel immediately comfortable. Stay where you are. Don't risk. Play it safe. That immediate comfort is how you know it's the enemy. It's inviting you to stay the same. The psychological term for your ally is growth mindset, or authentic self, or higher consciousness. But those terms make it sound abstract and distant. It's not. It's the part of you that knows you're capable of more than you're currently doing. The part that gets excited about possibilities. The part that wants to explore, experiment, and evolve. It's been there your whole life. Every brave choice you've ever made, that was the ally. Every time you tried to fight fear, that was the ally. Every moment you chose growth over comfort, that was the ally. The problem isn't that the ally is weak. It's that you haven't been deliberately amplifying it. You've been listening passively to whichever voice happened to be loudest that day. And the enemy is very, very loud. But volume isn't truth. The loudest voice isn't automatically the most accurate. And the most familiar voice isn't necessarily the one you should follow. Starting today, your job is to actively listen for the ally, to recognize its tone, its character, its suggestions, not because the enemy will disappear, but because you need to know both voices well enough to choose consciously between them. Every significant moment in your life going forward will involve a choice between these two voices. The enemy will offer safety through limitation. The ally will offer possibility through risk, and you will choose. Most people make this choice unconsciously, defaulting to whichever voice they've trained themselves to follow through years of habitual listening. But you're going to make it consciously, deliberately, strategically. Not every suggestion from the ally is perfect. Not every risk is worth taking. Not every possibility should be pursued. But here's what's true. You will grow more from listening to the ally 70% of the time than from listening to the enemy 100% of the time. The ally won't lead you to certain victory, but it will lead you to certain growth. And growth over time creates capability. And capability over time creates achievement. And achievement over time creates the life the enemy said was impossible. Your ally is waiting. It's been waiting your whole life. Patient, calm, ready. It doesn't need you to believe in it. It doesn't need you to trust it completely. It just needs you to experiment with following its suggestions occasionally and notice what happens. That's the beginning of winning this war. Not conquering the enemy, but amplifying the ally. Not silencing fear, but acting despite it. Not becoming fearless, but becoming someone who moves forward anyway. The ally's voice is quiet, but once you learn to recognize it, once you practice following it, once you start accumulating evidence that its suggestions work, something shifts. The ally doesn't get louder. You just get better at hearing it. And that changes everything. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Self-Defeat. Your mind wasn't designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. And there's a massive difference between those two goals. For most of human history, survival meant avoiding danger, staying with the tribe, not taking unnecessary risks, being suspicious of new things, remembering threats more vividly than opportunities. These instincts kept our ancestors alive long enough to reproduce. But in modern life, these same instincts keep you stuck. The mechanisms designed to protect you from predators now protect you from growth. The patterns meant to help you survive now prevent you from thriving. Let's examine the specific mental patterns that create self-defeat. Pattern 1, negativity bias. Your brain evolved to notice threats more readily than opportunities. In the ancestral environment, missing an opportunity meant less food. Missing a threat meant death. So the brain developed a strong preference for noticing, remembering, and focusing on negative information. This means your mind naturally highlights problems, dangers, and obstacles while glossing over resources, possibilities, and advantages. Not because you're pessimistic, because you're human. You can have 9 successes and 1 failure, and your mind will focus on the failure. You can receive 10 compliments and 1 criticism, and you'll remember the criticism. You can have a good day with 1 bad moment, and that moment will dominate your memory. This isn't a flaw. It's a feature. But it's a feature designed for a world that no longer exists. In a modern context, this negativity bias doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Pattern 2, loss aversion. Research shows humans feel losses roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains. Losing $100 hurts more than gaining $100 feels good. This made sense in resource-scarce environments where losses could mean death. But now this pattern makes you protect what you have instead of pursuing what you could gain. You stay in unfulfilling jobs because leaving feels like losing security. You avoid relationships because rejection feels like losing dignity. You refuse opportunities because failure feels like losing status. The potential gain has to be significantly larger than the potential loss before you'll act, which means you pass on countless valuable opportunities simply because the possibility of loss, even small loss, overwhelms the possibility of gain, even large gain. Pattern 3, confirmation bias. Your mind doesn't process information objectively. It processes information to confirm what you already believe. If you believe you're not good at public speaking, your mind will highlight every awkward moment and dismiss every successful presentation as luck or low stakes. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your belief shapes your perception. Your perception confirms your belief. Your confirmed belief strengthens, and the cycle continues, making your limiting beliefs increasingly unshakable regardless of contradictory evidence. Pattern 4, catastrophizing. Your mind's threat detection system evolved in environments where many threats were truly catastrophic. A lion wasn't going to give you a bad day. It was going to end your life. So your mind learned to escalate potential threats to worst-case scenarios automatically. Now that same mechanism escalates a difficult conversation into a destroyed relationship, a professional mistake into career ruin, a financial setback into permanent poverty, a rejection into permanent unworthiness. The threat detection system works the same way, but the actual threats have changed dramatically. Most modern threats are temporary setbacks, not existential dangers, but your mind treats them as if they're equivalent. Pattern 5, comparison. Your ancestors lived in groups of 50 to 150 people. Status competition was limited to that small group. Now you can compare yourself to millions of people through media and social platforms. Your comparison mechanisms weren't designed for this. They weren't meant to compare you to the top 0.1% of humanity in every domain. But that's what they do now. You compare your normal life to everyone else's highlight reel and conclude you're falling behind. This creates permanent dissatisfaction. No matter what you achieve, there's always someone doing more, someone better, someone further ahead. Your comparison mechanisms never let you feel satisfied because they're operating in an environment they weren't designed for. Pattern 6, present bias. Your mind values immediate rewards and immediate consequences far more than delayed ones. This made sense when life was short and uncertain. Take the benefit now because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. But now this pattern makes you choose short-term comfort over long-term growth. Immediate gratification over delayed achievement. Present pleasure over future capability. You know the delayed reward is larger and more valuable, but your mind weights the present so heavily that future benefits barely register. These 6 patterns create a mental architecture designed for survival in an environment that no longer exists. They're not helping you. They're limiting you. But here's the critical insight. You can't eliminate these patterns. They're hardwired, but you can become conscious of them. And consciousness creates choice. When you notice your mind catastrophizing, you can acknowledge it. That's the catastrophizing pattern. Not reality, just an evolved tendency. When you notice comparison making you miserable, you can recognize it. That's the comparison mechanism, doing what it does. Doesn't mean I should listen. The patterns don't disappear, but their power diminishes when you see them as patterns rather than truth, when you recognize them as evolutionary residue rather than accurate assessment. You're not fighting your mind. You're upgrading your relationship with it. Instead of believing every thought, you're observing thoughts. Instead of following every impulse, you're evaluating impulses. Instead of being run by patterns, you're working with patterns. This is the foundation of winning the war inside your mind. Understanding that most of what feels like truth is actually pattern. Most of what seems like reality is actually bias. Most of what appears to be accurate assessment is actually evolutionary programming. Once you see the architecture, you can work with it instead of being controlled by it. The patterns remain, but you become the architect instead of the prisoner. Chapter 4. The Weapon of Attention. You cannot control what enters your mind. Thoughts arrive uninvited. Emotions emerge spontaneously. Memories surface automatically. But you can control what you pay attention to. And attention is everything. Think of your mind like a stage. Hundreds of actors wait in the wings. Thoughts, memories, fears, desires. Each one wants stage time. Each one wants to perform. But only a few can be on stage at any moment. And you're the director who decides which ones get the spotlight. Most people never realize they're the director. They think whatever appears on stage is simply what's happening in my mind right now. So they watch helplessly as the same negative actors dominate the stage day after day. The same worries, the same regrets, the same self-criticisms, the same fears. But you're not helpless. You're the director, and the spotlight of attention is yours to control. Here's the fundamental mechanic. What you pay attention to gets stronger. What you ignore gets weaker. Not immediately, not dramatically, but consistently over time. If you pay attention to every negative thought, giving it analysis time, emotional energy, and mental focus, those thoughts become stronger, more frequent, more convincing. If you pay attention to possibilities, solutions, and growth, those thoughts become stronger, more frequent, more compelling. The thoughts themselves don't change. Your attention patterns change, and attention patterns determine experience. This is why two people can have objectively similar lives, but completely different experiences. Same circumstances, different attention patterns. One person spotlights problems, the other spotlights possibilities. One focuses on lacks, the other focuses on resources. One attends to threats, the other attends to opportunities. Neither is denying reality. They're just directing attention to different aspects of reality. And over time, this creates entirely different subjective experiences and, eventually, different objective results. So how do you control attention? Through practice. Deliberate, consistent practice. The attention practice. Several times each day, pause. Notice what's on the stage of your mind right now. What thought has the spotlight? What's performing at center stage? Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just observe it. Worry about tomorrow's meeting has the stage right now. Or, self-criticism about this morning's conversation is performing. Or, fantasy about what I should have said is center stage. Simply naming what has your attention creates space, a gap, a moment of choice, and in that gap, you can redirect. Ask, is this what I want to give my attention to right now? Nah. Is this thought true or false? Nah. Is this feeling valid or invalid? Simply, do I want to continue focusing here? If yes, continue. Give it full attention. Let it complete. Sometimes worry needs to be fully felt. Sometimes planning needs to happen. Sometimes reflection is valuable. Attention isn't always about positivity. Sometimes it's about presence. But if this thought is simply rumination or repetition or unhelpful spiral, then redirect. Deliberately choose something else to attend to. Not by fighting the thought, not by suppressing it, but by simply moving the spotlight. The thought doesn't leave the stage, but it no longer has your attention. It becomes background, periphery, waiting in the wings. At first, redirection lasts seconds. The thought you redirected away from immediately reclaims the spotlight. That's normal. That's expected. You've been giving certain thoughts stage time for years. They're accustomed to starring. They'll keep auditioning. But each time you redirect, you weaken the automaticity. You interrupt the pattern. You prove that you can move the spotlight, and that proof accumulates. After a week of practice, redirection lasts minutes. After a month, it can last hours. After several months, you'll notice certain thoughts barely appear anymore. Not because you eliminated them, because you stopped feeding them attention, and they weaken from neglect. This is not positive thinking. This is not denial. This is strategic attention management. You're not pretending problems don't exist. You're choosing how much mental real estate they occupy. You're deciding how much of your limited cognitive resources they consume. Because attention is limited, you cannot attend to everything. You cannot focus on all thoughts simultaneously. You must choose. And most people choose unconsciously, giving attention to whichever thought is loudest, most familiar, or most emotionally charged. But loud doesn't mean important. Familiar doesn't mean helpful. Emotionally charged doesn't mean worth focusing on. You're learning to choose consciously, to direct deliberately, to use attention as the tool it is rather than being used by whatever captures it. This single skill, attention management, is worth more than 1,000 motivation techniques. Because motivation fades, inspiration disappears, but attention control remains. It's a permanent upgrade, a foundational capability that makes everything else easier. When you control attention, you don't need to control thoughts. When you direct focus, you don't need to fight feelings. When you manage the spotlight, the stage takes care of itself. Practice this daily, multiple times. Brief moments of pausing, noticing, and choosing. That's all it takes. No hour-long meditation sessions required. No complex techniques needed. Just pause. Notice. Choose. The actor demanding attention right now doesn't want you to know this. It wants you to believe it must be addressed, must be analyzed, must be solved. But that's just another performance, another script, another attempt to keep the spotlight. You're the director. Start directing. Your mind is your stage. Make it produce the show you want to experience. Chapter 5, The Momentum Principle. Everything is hard at the beginning. Everything gets easier with consistency. This is the momentum principle, and it's the difference between people who transform and people who just try. When you first start redirecting attention, it's exhausting. The enemy's voice is loud. The ally's voice is quiet. Every choice requires enormous effort. You feel like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. And honestly, you are. But here's what most people don't understand. You're not going to be pushing forever. You're building momentum. And momentum, once established, does most of the work for you. Think about a flywheel. A massive, heavy disc. Getting it to move from stillness requires tremendous force. You push. Push harder. Keep pushing. For a long time, it barely budges. Just tiny, almost imperceptible movement. This is where most people quit. They push hard for days or weeks, see minimal movement, and conclude, this isn't working. I'm not making progress. I should try something else. But that's exactly wrong. They're making enormous progress. They just can't see it yet because they're in the initial resistance phase. the phase where all the work goes into overcoming inertia. If they kept pushing, the flywheel would start turning. Slowly at first, but once it's moving, something magical happens. Each push adds to existing momentum instead of fighting inertia. The same effort produces more movement. More movement creates more momentum. More momentum makes the next push easier. Eventually, the flywheel spins so fast that tiny pushes maintain huge momentum. What required exhausting effort initially now requires minimal maintenance. The flywheel spins almost on its own. This is how psychological change works. This is how new patterns form. This is how warrior mindset develops. Day 1 of redirecting attention, exhausting, constant effort, minimal results. Day 30, still challenging but noticeably easier. Some automatic redirection happening. Day 90, redirection is often automatic. The effort has decreased dramatically. Day 180, the new pattern is default. The old pattern still exists, but requires no active resistance. But here's the trap. Most people never experience day 90 because they quit on day 12. They're still in maximum resistance, maximum effort, minimal visible results. And they conclude the process doesn't work. The process works. They just stop too early. Understanding the momentum principle changes everything. Because now you know. The difficulty you're experiencing isn't evidence of failure. It's evidence that you're in the critical early phase, where momentum is being built. Every bit of effort counts. Every small push matters. You're not spinning your wheels. You're overcoming inertia. This knowledge makes the early difficulty bearable. Not easy, not fun, but bearable. Because you understand it's temporary. You understand you're building something. You understand the effort has a purpose, even when you can't see immediate results. Let me be specific about what building momentum looks like in the war inside your mind. Week 1, complete conscious effort. The enemy's voice dominates. You catch yourself following old patterns frequently. You have to actively remember to redirect attention. You succeed maybe 20% of the time. You feel like you're failing. You're not failing. You're establishing awareness. You're building the observer stance. You're practicing the fundamental skill. 20% success rate after 1 week is huge progress. Week 2, still mostly conscious effort, but you're catching old patterns faster. Maybe 30% redirection success rate. The enemy is still louder, but you're hearing the ally more clearly. You're noticing the gap between stimulus and response more frequently. Week 4, mixture of conscious and semi-automatic. Some redirections happen without full effort. Maybe 50% success rate. You're having moments, sometimes even hours, where the new pattern feels natural. The enemy's voice is less convincing. The allies' suggestions seem more reasonable. Week 8, largely semi-automatic with conscious maintenance. New patterns often occur without force. Maybe 70% success rate. You're surprised to notice how much easier this has become. The enemy still speaks, but you rarely believe it fully. The ally has become a trusted advisor. Week 12, new pattern is largely default. Old pattern still exists, but doesn't control you. Maybe 80% success rate. You occasionally slip into old thinking, but you catch it quickly and redirect without drama. The war isn't over, but you're winning consistently. This timeline isn't exact for everyone. Some people build momentum faster. Others need more time. But the principle remains. It starts hard and gets easier. Not linearly, not obviously, but certainly. The question isn't whether this works. It's whether you'll push through the initial resistance phase, where it doesn't feel like it's working. Most transformation attempts fail not because the method is wrong, but because people quit during the resistance phase. They interpret this as hard, as this isn't working. They interpret, I don't see results yet, as this won't produce results. But hard doesn't mean ineffective. Difficult doesn't mean wrong. Slow initial progress doesn't mean no progress. It means you're building momentum. You're in the flywheel's early phase. You're overcoming inertia. Your only job is to keep pushing. Not perfectly. Not flawlessly. Just consistently. Small pushes. Daily pushes. Imperfect pushes. They all count. They all add up. They all contribute to momentum. The enemy will tell you to quit. Will point to the lack of dramatic results. Will suggest you try something easier. This is the enemy's last-ditch defense. Because the enemy knows, if you push through the resistance phase, if you build momentum, it loses its grip permanently. The ally doesn't need to convince you. It just needs you to continue, to persist, to trust that the difficulty is temporary and the momentum is building even when you can't feel it yet. So continue, persist, trust the process, not blindly, strategically. You're not hoping momentum will come. You're building momentum through consistent effort. It's not magic. It's mechanics. Push the flywheel. Build momentum. Win the war. Every day you continue is a push. Every redirection is movement. Every small victory is momentum being established. It's all counting. It's all accumulating. It's all working. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Especially when it doesn't feel like it. That's when momentum is being built most powerfully. In the resistance. In the difficulty. In the phase where nothing seems to be changing. Everything is changing. The flywheel is beginning to turn. Keep pushing. The momentum is coming. And when it arrives, you'll understand why the early difficulty was worth it. Chapter 6. When the world collapses. There will be days when everything you've learned seems useless. Days when the enemy doesn't just whisper. It screams. Days when the ally's voice disappears completely. Days when every tool stops working and every strategy fails. These aren't exceptions. They're guaranteed. They're part of the war. And how you handle them determines whether you're building real warrior capacity or just learning techniques that work only when things are easy. Let me describe what a true crisis looks like in the war inside your mind. You wake up and immediately feel wrong. Not sad. Not anxious. Just wrong. Like something fundamental has shifted overnight. The confidence you built over weeks vanishes. The clarity you developed evaporates. The progress you made seems like an illusion. You try your tools. Morning declaration? The words feel empty. Attention redirection? Your attention won't redirect. It's stuck, fixated on something dark and heavy. Counter thoughts? They sound like lies. You know they're technically true, but they carry no weight, no power, no conviction. This is what I call a siege. Not a battle. A siege. And sieges follow different rules. In a battle, you fight actively. You engage. You use your weapons. You execute strategies. But in a siege, those tactics don't work. The enemy isn't attacking specific positions. It's surrounding everything. Cutting off supply lines. Waiting for you to exhaust yourself, trying to fight something that can't be fought directly. Most people encounter their first real siege and panic. They think they've lost everything. They think their progress was fake. They think they're back at the beginning. And that panic, that belief, that's what actually defeats them, not the siege itself. Because here's the truth about sieges, they end. Always. Without exception. No siege lasts forever. The biological and psychological mechanisms that create them are temporary. They might last hours, might last days, rarely last weeks, but they always end. Your job during a siege isn't to win. It's to survive, to hold position, to maintain minimum defensive capacity, to outlast the assault. And there's a specific protocol for this. Siege Protocol Step 1. Recognize it's a siege. The moment you notice everything has gone dark, Everything feels impossible. Every tool has stopped working, name it. This is a siege. Not, I've failed. Not, I've lost everything. Not, it was all pointless. Just, this is a siege. This single recognition changes everything. Because now you're not trying to fix what's broken. You're not trying to fight what can't be fought. You're executing siege protocol. Different situation. Different response. Siege protocol step 2, minimal defense. During a siege, you cannot advance. Don't try. You'll exhaust yourself and gain nothing. Instead, identify your absolute minimum viable defense and maintain only that. What's minimum viable? The smallest set of actions that keeps you functional. Maybe it's eat something, shower, leave the house for 10 minutes. That's it. Not your full routine. Not all your practices. Not optimal performance. Just barely functional. This sounds like giving up. It's not. It's strategic conservation. You're maintaining just enough structure to prevent complete collapse while conserving energy for when the siege ends. Many people make the mistake of trying to maintain full performance during a siege. They force themselves through entire routines, push through all practices, demand normal productivity, and they burn out. They use all their energy fighting the siege instead of surviving it. Siege Protocol Step 3, External Reinforcement. During a siege, you cannot rely on internal resources. Your internal state is compromised. Your own thoughts are unreliable. Your own feelings are distorted. So you need external input. This might be talking to someone you trust, reading something that reminds you of truth, listening to specific music or content, watching something that shifts your state slightly, physical exercise, time in nature, whatever gives you even small relief. You're not looking for a cure. You're looking for minor reinforcement, small reminders that reality is larger than this siege, brief moments of slight relief, tiny infusions of external perspective. Siege Protocol Step 4, Trust the end. The hardest part of a siege is believing it will end when every current feeling says it's permanent. The enemy during a siege is extremely convincing. It doesn't just make you feel bad. It makes you believe you'll always feel bad. That this darkness is the truth you were fooling yourself about. That the light you experienced was the illusion, and this darkness is reality. This is the siege's biggest lie. The darkness feels permanent, but feelings aren't facts. This emotional state, no matter how heavy, is temporary. The biology creating it will shift. The psychology sustaining it will exhaust itself. The siege will end. You don't need to believe this fully. You just need to trust it enough to keep executing siege protocol, to hold position, to survive. Because if you can do that, if you can outlast the siege without making it worse, when it ends, you'll be stronger. Here's what most people don't realize. Surviving a siege builds capacity that cannot be built any other way. When you come through a siege, when you experience the darkness lifting, when you prove to yourself that the darkness was temporary, something fundamental shifts. You develop siege immunity. Not complete. You'll face future sieges, but they'll be less frightening, less convincing, because you'll remember, I've been here before. It ended. This will end too. And that memory, that proof, makes every future siege more survivable. The warrior who's never faced a siege is fragile. Their confidence depends on continuous favorable conditions. But the warrior who's survived sieges, they're formidable, because they've proven they can endure the worst. They know their foundation holds even when everything else collapses. This is why you shouldn't fear sieges, shouldn't avoid them, cannot avoid them. They're not setbacks. They're upgrades. Painful upgrades. Terrible upgrades. But upgrades nonetheless. When the next siege comes, and it will come, you'll know what to do. Recognize it. Execute minimal defense. Seek external reinforcement. Trust the end. Hold position. Survive. And when you come through, you'll be more formidable than before. The enemy wants you to believe sieges mean you're losing the war. They mean the opposite. Sieges mean you are becoming dangerous enough that a regular battle isn't sufficient. You're requiring more intense assault. You're requiring siege conditions. Take it as a compliment, then survive it, and emerge stronger. Chapter 7. The Daily Rhythm. Grand strategies matter. Crisis protocols matter. Understanding matters. But most of the war is won or lost in mundane daily practices, in the rhythm you establish, in the habits you maintain, in the small choices you make consistently. The warrior who can't establish daily rhythm is like a soldier who understands war intellectually, but can't maintain basic discipline. Understanding doesn't win wars. Applied understanding wins wars. And application happens daily. Let me give you a daily rhythm framework, not a rigid schedule. A flexible structure you can adapt to your life while maintaining the core elements that win this war. Morning, offensive launch. The first hour after waking sets the tone, not through mystical energy, through psychological priming. What you do first shapes how you approach everything after. Most people begin defensively. Phone, messages, news, other people's priorities. Starting defensive means staying defensive all day. Warriors begin offensive, not with aggression, with intentionality. Deciding how today will go rather than reacting to how it's going. Your morning offensive has 3 components. Physical, movement that reminds your body it's alive. Not necessarily intense, just present. Stretching, walking, exercise. Whatever gets you in your body instead of immediately in your head. 10 minutes minimum. Mental attention setting. Reviewing your intention for the day. Reminding yourself of who you're becoming. Not affirmations. Orientation. Where am I going? What matters today? How will I show up? 5 minutes minimum. Spiritual. Connection to something larger than immediate concerns. This might be gratitude. Might be meditation. Might be reading something meaningful. Might be simply sitting quietly. The content matters less than the effect. Remembering that your life is bigger than today's problems. 5 minutes minimum. 20 minutes total. Anyone can find 20 minutes. If you don't have time, you're already losing the war. The enemy has convinced you that everything else is more urgent than establishing your foundation. And without foundation, everything else collapses. Midday position check. Midday is when most people lose the plot. Morning intention dissolves. Old patterns reassert. The enemy regains ground. Not through dramatic assault. Through simple drift. You get busy, distracted, reactive, and without noticing, you've surrendered the morning's progress. The midday position check prevents this. 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Brief pause. Quick assessment. Where am I right now? Am I operating from the ally or the enemy? Am I on offense or defense? Am I executing my intentions or reacting to circumstances? Not judgment, just data. If you've drifted, correct. If you're on track, acknowledge and continue. The goal isn't perfection. It's awareness and adjustment. Set a midday alarm. When it goes off, check position. That's it. This small practice maintains continuity between morning and evening, prevents the day from becoming 2 separate experiences. Intentional morning, unconscious afternoon. Evening, evidence collection. Evenings are for proof, for demonstrating to yourself that today mattered, that progress happened, that the war was fought and territory was held or gained. The evening practice is simple. Document 3 victories from today. Not achievements. Victories. Moments you fought and won. Moments you chose the ally over the enemy. Moments you redirected attention. Moments you executed despite resistance. These don't need to be large. I noticed a negative thought spiral and interrupted it. That's a victory. I wanted to skip my morning practice, but did it anyway. Victory. I spoke up in the meeting despite fear. Victory. Write them down. Physical notebook or digital file. Don't skip this. Don't just remember them. Writing makes them real, makes them evidence, makes them undeniable. Over weeks and months, you'll accumulate hundreds of documented victories. And when the enemy says you never win, when siege conditions make you question everything, you'll have proof. Physical, documented proof that you've fought and won repeatedly. This is how you build a psychological foundation that can't be shaken, not through inspiration, through documentation, through evidence, through proof. Weekly, strategic review. Daily rhythm maintains position. Weekly review ensures you're actually advancing, not just busy, not just consistent, actually progressing towards something. Every Sunday evening, or whatever day works for your schedule, 30 minutes. Review the week. Ask these questions. What worked this week? What practices or approaches produced good results? What didn't work? What needs adjustment? What patterns did I notice? What triggers appeared repeatedly? What did I learn about myself? About the enemy? About the war? What's my focus for next week? What one or two things deserve special attention? Write the answers. Not because writing is magical, because writing forces clarity, forces specificity, forces actual thinking instead of vague impression. This weekly review transforms unconscious effort into strategic campaign. You're not just trying hard. You're learning, adapting, improving, getting better at the specific war you're fighting rather than fighting generically. Monthly evidence review. Once a month, review all the victory documentation from that month. Read through every victory, every moment you chose differently, every time you fought and won. This does something psychological that's hard to overstate. It makes progress undeniable. Day to day, progress is often invisible. But month to month, documented victory to documented victory, progress is obvious. You'll see patterns. You'll see growth. You'll see that the you from 30 days ago struggled with things current you handles easily. And that recognition, that proof, builds the kind of confidence the enemy cannot shake. This is the daily rhythm. Not complicated, not requiring hours, but requiring consistency, requiring actual execution. The enemy will attack this rhythm immediately, will suggest you're too busy, that you'll start tomorrow, that you don't need structure, that you can do this casually. These suggestions aren't helping you. They're defeating you. The warrior without rhythm is chaotic, inconsistent, dependent on mood and circumstance. The warrior with rhythm is reliable, cumulative, building capacity regardless of how they feel on any given day. Establish rhythm. Maintain rhythm. Let rhythm do what rhythm does. Transform intentional practice into automatic capacity. Transform conscious effort into unconscious competence. Transform what requires force into what flows naturally. The war is won through rhythm, not through heroic moments, not through perfect days, through decent days, through maintaining the minimum, through showing up, through executing the basics, through rhythm. Build yours. Maintain yours. Win through yours. Chapter 8. Advanced Combat. You've learned the basics. Recognition. Attention. Momentum. Siege protocol. Daily rhythm. These foundations win most battles, but some battles require advanced tactics. Situations where the enemy is subtle, where the trap is sophisticated, where basic tools aren't sufficient. This chapter is for those situations. Advanced combat for the warrior who's mastered fundamentals. Advanced Tactic 1, the second level trap. The enemy evolves. When you learn to counter obvious attacks, you can't do this, or you'll fail. The enemy shifts tactics. It stops making simple negative statements and starts making sophisticated ones. You're doing well, but you're probably just in a good phase. This won't last. Other people can succeed at this, but you have specific limitations they don't have. You've made progress, but now the real challenges begin. The hard part is coming. These aren't obviously negative. They sound like realism, like sophisticated awareness, like wise caution, and that's what makes them dangerous. You defend against crude attacks, while sophisticated attacks slip through. The second-level trap uses your own growth against you. It acknowledges your progress, while simultaneously undermining it. It agrees you're moving forward, while suggesting forward motion is temporary or insufficient or about to be reversed. How to counter? Recognize the pattern. Any thought that acknowledges progress then immediately introduces doubt, this second-level trap. I'm doing well, but... That but is the tell. Real assessment doesn't need to undermine what it acknowledges. When you catch this pattern, call it second-level trap. Acknowledged. Then separate the parts. The progress is real. The doubt is added. Keep the first. Discard the second. Advanced tactic 2, the righteous excuse. Some excuses are obvious. I don't feel like it. It's too hard. I'll start tomorrow. You've learned to see through these. But some excuses are sophisticated. They sound legitimate, reasonable, even noble. I can't focus on myself right now. Others need me. This is selfish. I should be helping people instead. Personal growth is privilege. Real problems exist in the world. I need to be realistic about my limitations. Ambition is arrogant. These aren't obviously avoidant. They sound like maturity, like social consciousness, like humility. And many people fall for them precisely because they don't sound like excuses. But here's the tell. Righteous excuses always prevent action while sounding virtuous. They give you permission to avoid growth while feeling good about avoiding it. They turn retreat into moral superiority. How to counter? Test the logic. If personal growth is selfish, why do the most effective helpers grow personally first? If realism about limitations is wise, why do limited people accomplish extraordinary things? If ambition is arrogant, why is playing small somehow humble? The righteous excuse doesn't withstand scrutiny. It only works when you don't examine it. So examine it, question it, push on it. It collapses quickly because it's built on false premises. Advanced Tactic 3, the comparison trap upgrade. You've learned that comparing yourself to others is counterproductive, but the enemy upgrades this trap. Instead of obvious comparison, they're better than you. It uses subtle comparison. You're doing well for someone your age. That's impressive considering your background. You're making good progress for someone starting this late. Notice the pattern? These statements acknowledge your achievement while simultaneously diminishing it. They praise you relative to some limiting category. The message underneath: you're good for someone limited, but you are limited. This is sophisticated because it feels like encouragement, like someone being supportive, but it's actually encoding limitation into your self-concept. You start thinking of yourself as good for your circumstances instead of just good. And that subtle framing changes everything. How to counter? Reject the qualification. If someone says that's impressive for someone your age, hear only that's impressive. The qualification isn't truth. It's arbitrary categorization. Your achievements stand on their own merits, or they don't. Age, background, starting point, these are context, not limits. Advanced Tactic 4, the wisdom disguise. The enemy's most sophisticated tactic is disguising itself as wisdom, as mature understanding, as enlightened perspective. The real wisdom is accepting yourself as you are. True growth means being content with enough. Mature people know when to stop striving. Real strength is knowing your limits. These sound profound, like deep understanding, like spiritual maturity, and they can be true in certain contexts, but the enemy uses them to justify stagnation, to make giving up sound like wisdom. Does this wisdom lead to growth or to cessation? Does it encourage evolution or acceptance of current state? Does it open possibilities or close them? Real wisdom says, accept yourself fully and continue growing. Fake wisdom says, accept yourself so you can stop trying to change. The first is integration. The second is resignation. How to counter? Test the outcome. If following this wisdom means you stop growing, stop trying, stop evolving, it's not wisdom. It's rationalization. Real wisdom doesn't stop movement. It directs movement more skillfully. Advanced Tactic 5, the identity hijack. When you start winning, when you build momentum, when you establish rhythm, the enemy tries something desperate. It hijacks your identity. You are the kind of person who, it's just your nature to, you've always been someone who. The enemy tries to turn your past patterns into permanent identity, to make what you've done define what you can do, to transform history into destiny. This is sophisticated because it uses your actual history. It's not making things up. You did act that way. You did have those patterns. The sophistication is in the implicit claim that past patterns are permanent identity. How to counter? Separate behavior from identity. You did those things. You are not those things. Past patterns are data, not destiny. You're not discovering who you are. You're deciding who you're becoming. And who you're becoming is determined by current choices, not past patterns. When the enemy says you're the kind of person who quits when things get hard, the counter is, I have quit before. I'm now someone who persists. Watch. These advanced tactics require vigilance. They're not obvious. They're designed to slip past your defenses while sounding reasonable, wise, or even supportive. But once you learn to recognize them, once you see the patterns, they lose their power. Advanced combat isn't about fighting harder. It's about fighting smarter. It's about recognizing sophisticated traps before you fall into them. It's about maintaining skepticism toward thoughts that sound wise, but lead to limitation. The enemy gets more sophisticated as you get stronger. This isn't discouraging. It's complement. Basic tactics no longer work on you. The enemy has to try harder, has to be more subtle, has to use advanced approaches. And now you have advanced counters. The war continues. But you're no longer a basic warrior fighting basic battles. You're an advanced warrior fighting advanced battles. And advanced warriors win consistently. Chapter 9. The territory of your mind. Imagine your mind as physical territory. Hills, valleys, regions. Some areas you control completely. Some the enemy controls. Some are contested. Most people never think about their mind this way. They experience thoughts as random events rather than territorial warfare. But once you see your mind as territory, everything changes. Because territory can be claimed, can be defended, can be expanded, can be lost, and most importantly, can be won through strategic campaign. Let's map the territory. Core territory, your foundation. This is the innermost region. Your fundamental beliefs about yourself. Your base identity. Your deepest assumptions about what's possible, what you deserve, what you're capable of. For most people, the enemy controls significant portions of core territory. They have deep beliefs planted there. I'm not that kind of person. People like me don't achieve that. I have limitations that matter. Success is for others. These beliefs weren't put there through force. They were planted slowly, over years, through repetition and reinforcement. Every time you failed and internalized it as identity. Every time someone dismissed you and you believed them. Every time you tried and quit and told yourself a story about why quitting was who you are. Layer by layer, the enemy claimed core territory, and now those beliefs feel like truth, like obvious facts, like who you actually are. But they're not truth. They're occupation. The enemy claiming core territory and flying its flags there. And what's been claimed can be reclaimed. Middle territory, your daily operation. This is where you live most of your life. Your daily thoughts, your regular patterns, your habitual responses, your automatic reactions. Middle territory is where most battles happen. When you wake up, which voice gets your first attention? When challenges appear, which interpretation do you automatically make? When opportunities arise, which instinct activates first? Middle territory determines your day-to-day experience. And for most people, middle territory is heavily contested. Sometimes the ally controls it. Sometimes the enemy. Often they're fighting over it constantly. And whichever side wins the morning tends to control the day. This is where daily rhythm matters most. Because daily rhythm is how you hold middle territory. How you prevent the enemy from reclaiming it while you sleep. How you maintain consistent control instead of fighting over the same ground repeatedly. Outer territory, your future self. This is the frontier. The version of yourself you're building toward. The capabilities you don't have yet. The identity you're growing into. The life you're creating. Outer territory is aspirational. The ally lives here naturally, pointing toward possibility, suggesting expansion, encouraging exploration. But the enemy tries to control it too, not by claiming it directly, by convincing you it doesn't exist, that the frontier is fake, that expansion is impossible, that your current territory is all you'll ever have. When the enemy controls outer territory, you stop growing. Not because growth is impossible, because you can't see the frontier anymore. You believe your current state is your permanent state, and that belief stops all forward motion. The war inside your mind is a territorial campaign, and like any territorial campaign, it requires strategy. Strategy 1. Defend core territory first. You cannot expand while your foundation is under assault. You cannot take new ground while losing home ground. Core territory must be secured before anything else matters. This means identifying the deep beliefs the enemy has planted and systematically replacing them, not through wishful thinking, through evidence gathering, through documentation, through proof accumulation. Every time you do something that contradicts a limiting core belief, that's evidence. Stack it. Document it. Build undeniable proof that the old belief was wrong. Not opinion. Not hope. Proof. When you have enough proof, the old belief loses power. The enemy can still activate it, but you don't believe it anymore. It becomes a habit of thought rather than truth, and habits can be replaced. Strategy 2. Establish control of middle territory. Daily rhythm is how you hold middle territory, but holding isn't enough. You need to expand control, to make more of middle territory automatically allied instead of contested. This happens through practice, through repeatedly choosing allies' voice over enemies, through consistently redirecting attention toward growth instead of limitation, through building the momentum we discussed earlier. Each time you choose deliberately, you strengthen allied control of middle territory. Each time you default to the old pattern, you reinforce enemy control. The territory responds to which force you empower more frequently. This isn't about perfection. You'll choose wrong sometimes. You'll backslide. You'll lose ground temporarily. That's normal. That's expected. The question isn't whether you'll lose ground. It's whether you reclaim it quickly or let the loss become permanent. Warriors reclaim ground. Non-warriors rationalize the loss and accept it as new reality. Strategy 3. Scout outer territory. The ally sees farther than you currently can. It sees possibilities you can't yet imagine, capabilities you don't yet believe you have, territory you don't yet know exists. Your job isn't to conquer outer territory immediately. Your job is to scout it, to explore it, to test whether it's real, to gather data about what's possible. This means experimenting, trying things beyond your current capacity, testing whether limits you believe are real are actually real, pushing boundaries to see if they're boundaries or just beliefs. Most boundaries are beliefs. Most limits are learned. Most impossible is actually never attempted. Scouting outer territory reveals this, not through theory, through direct experience. When you discover you can do something you believed you couldn't, outer territory expands. The frontier moves. New possibilities appear, and the ally gains ground. Strategy 4. Prevent enemy resupply. The enemy maintains control through resupply, through constant reinforcement of old beliefs, through regular exposure to limiting ideas, through habitual consumption of content that validates staying small. If you're defending core territory but constantly consuming media that reinforces limitation, you're fighting with one hand while handing the enemy weapons with the other. If you're expanding middle territory but surrounding yourself with people who reinforce old patterns, you're advancing while the enemy rebuilds behind you. Strategic territory control requires cutting enemy supply lines. This means curating what you consume, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to. Not completely, not perfectly, but deliberately. Choose content that supports allied control more than enemy control. Curating who you spend time with. Not abandoning everyone. Not building isolation, but being strategic about whose voice you amplify in your life. Spending more time with people who reinforce growth, less with people who reinforce limitation. This isn't about creating echo chambers. It's about creating an environment that supports your campaign rather than undermines it. The war inside your mind is territorial. The enemy holds ground. The ally seeks ground. And you direct the campaign. You decide which territory matters most. You decide where to fight. You decide how to allocate resources. Most people never think strategically about this. They let the territory be fought over randomly, giving attention randomly, making choices randomly, and wondering why they never gain lasting ground. But you're not most people anymore. You're thinking territorially, strategically, deliberately, and that changes everything. Map your territory. Identify what the enemy controls. Identify what the ally controls. Identify what's contested. Then develop strategy for reclaiming enemy ground, holding allied ground, and expanding into new ground. This is how wars are won, not through random fighting, through strategic campaign, through territorial advancement, through deliberate, sustained, intelligent progress. Your mind is territory. Claim it, hold it, expand it, win it. Chapter 10. The Evolution of a Warrior. You started this audiobook as one version of yourself. You won't finish it as that same version. You're already evolving. The question isn't whether you'll change. It's whether you'll direct that change or let it happen randomly. Evolution isn't optional. You're either evolving toward strength or toward weakness, toward capability or toward limitation, toward mastery or toward helplessness. There's no neutral. There's no staying the same. You're always moving in one direction or the other. Most people evolve unconsciously. They respond to circumstances, adapt to pressures, become whatever their environment shapes them into. This is passive evolution. And passive evolution usually moves toward limitation because environments optimize for compliance, not capability. But warriors evolve actively. They decide who they're becoming. They direct their development. They choose what to strengthen and what to let atrophy. This is active evolution. And active evolution moves toward mastery because you're deliberately developing the capacities that win wars. Let me describe the stages of warrior evolution. Not rigid categories, fluid phases. You might be in different stages for different aspects of the war. That's normal. The goal isn't to rush through stages. It's to understand where you are and what the next evolution requires. Stage 1, unconscious incompetence. This is where everyone starts. You don't know there's a war. You don't recognize the enemy. You don't hear the ally. You experience thoughts as truth, emotions as facts, patterns as identity. You're being lived by invisible forces and don't realize it. Most people spend their entire lives in this stage, never evolving beyond it, never realizing there's anything beyond it. And that's tragic but common. You're past this stage. The moment you recognize there's a war, you evolve beyond unconscious incompetence. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't go back to believing every thought is truth. You've seen too much. Stage 2, conscious incompetence. This is where you are now, or were recently. You know there's a war. You recognize the enemy. You hear the ally. But you don't consistently win. You try to redirect attention, and it snaps back. You attempt to counter negative thoughts, and they overpower you. You understand theoretically, but can't execute practically. This stage is frustrating, because now you see the war clearly, but lose most battles. You know what you should do, but can't consistently do it. You understand principles, but lack capacity to apply them reliably. Many people get stuck in this stage. They learn concepts, but never develop skill. They understand the problem, but never solve it. They remain perpetually aware of their incompetence, without evolving past it. Don't get stuck here. This stage is necessary but temporary. It's where you build the foundation for stage 3. It's where practice happens, where repetition accumulates, where momentum builds even though you can't feel it yet. The evolution from stage 2 to stage 3 happens through volume, through repeated attempts, through failing more often than succeeding, but continuing anyway, through trusting the process when the process doesn't seem to be working. Stage 3, conscious competence. This is where the war becomes winnable. You can execute the tactics. You can redirect attention successfully. You can counter enemy attacks effectively. You can activate the ally deliberately, but it requires conscious effort. You have to remember to do it, have to actively engage, have to focus deliberately. In stage 3, you win more battles than you lose. Your daily rhythm works most days. Your momentum is real and noticeable. Your evidence stack is undeniable. The enemy still wins sometimes, but you reclaim ground quickly. This stage feels like progress because it is progress. Significant progress. You're no longer someone who understands, but can't do. You're someone who can do, but has to work at it. Many warriors spend years in stage 3. It's a good stage. A functional stage. A stage where life works better than it ever has. And some warriors stay here permanently, maintaining conscious competence for the rest of their lives. But there's another stage, a final evolution, and it's available to those who continue practicing even after conscious competence is achieved. Stage 4, unconscious competence. This is mastery. The tactics become automatic. The redirections happen naturally. The counters activate without conscious deployment. The ally's voice becomes your default. The war continues, but you win so consistently that winning becomes your nature. In stage 4, you don't think about the war constantly. You don't have to remind yourself to fight. You don't consciously deploy tactics. Your mind has been reprogrammed. New patterns have become default. New habits have replaced old ones. The ally has become stronger than the enemy, not through constant effort, but through accumulated past effort that's now automated. This doesn't mean the enemy disappears. It means the enemy's attacks trigger automatic, effective responses. It doesn't mean you never lose battles. It means you reclaim ground so quickly that losses don't accumulate. Stage 4 is where the war becomes background instead of foreground, where you can focus on building your life instead of constantly defending your mind, where your foundation is so solid that you can build higher without fearing collapse. Not everyone reaches stage 4, not because it's impossible, because it requires sustained practice beyond the point where practice seems necessary. Most people reach stage 3 and stop practicing because things are working well enough. And that's fine. That's reasonable. That's a legitimate choice. But if you want mastery, if you want the war to become easy, if you want unconscious competence, you continue practicing even after conscious competence is achieved. You continue when it seems unnecessary. You continue because you're not aiming for good enough. You're aiming for automatic. The timeline for these stages varies dramatically. Some people move from stage 2 to stage 3 in weeks. Others take years. Some reach stage 4 in months. Others never get there. The speed doesn't matter. The direction matters. As long as you're practicing, as long as you're applying what you learn, as long as you're fighting the war consciously even when you lose battles, you're evolving, moving through the stages, building capacity, becoming more formidable. And here's what makes warrior evolution exponential. Each stage doesn't just make you better at the war. It makes you better at evolution itself. You learn how you learn. You discover what works for you. You develop meta-skill, skill of developing skills. So by the time you reach stage 4 in one area, you can move through all 4 stages faster in new areas. The evolution process itself has been mastered. You become someone who can learn anything, master anything, evolve toward anything, because you've learned how evolution works for you. This is the ultimate prize. Not just winning the current war, but becoming someone who can win any war. Not just mastering this mind, but becoming a master of mind. You're evolving right now. This audiobook is part of your evolution. Every concept you integrate, every tactic you practice, every battle you fight, you're moving through stages, building capacity, becoming formidable. Don't rush the process. Don't skip stages. Don't expect stage 4 when you're in stage 2. Just practice. Apply. Fight. Evolve. Trust that each stage prepares you for the next. Trust that evolution is happening even when you can't feel it. Trust that you're becoming someone you can't yet imagine. Because you are. You're not the same person who started this audiobook. You never will be again. You're evolving. And evolution, once begun, doesn't stop. The only question is, will you direct it or let it direct you? Direct it. Actively. Deliberately. Consciously. Evolve into the warrior you're meant to become. Chapter 11. Beyond Personal Victory. There comes a point in the warrior's journey when something shifts. You've won enough battles, built enough evidence, developed enough capacity. The war inside your mind isn't finished, but you're consistently winning it. And then a question emerges. Now what? This is a critical moment. Many warriors never reach it because they never win consistently enough for the question to arise. But for those who do, the question can be disorienting. Because for so long, the war was about you, your mind, your growth, your development. And that was right. That was necessary. You had to secure your foundation before you could build beyond it. But now the foundation is secure, and purely personal victory starts feeling insufficient. Not wrong, not pointless, just incomplete. This isn't ingratitude. This isn't minimizing your progress. This is evolution, natural evolution. The warrior who's won their internal war starts looking for external application, for larger purpose, for contribution beyond self. This is when the war inside your mind transforms from personal battleground into training ground, from the end goal into the foundation, from what you're fighting for into what enables you to fight for something larger. Let me be clear. You never stop fighting your internal war. The enemy doesn't retire. The ally doesn't become unnecessary. The battles continue, but they stop being the entire story. They become the prerequisite for a larger story. Think of it this way. An athlete trains extensively. Conditioning, skills, practice. For months or years, training is the entire focus. But training isn't the point. Training is what enables performance. And eventually, the athlete stops focusing purely on training and starts focusing on the game the training was preparing them for. Your internal war is training. It's necessary. It's valuable. It's foundational. But it's training. And at some point, if you train well enough, you start looking for the game. What's the game? That depends on you, on your capacities, your interests, your opportunities, your calling. But the game always involves other people, always involves contribution, always involves using your developed strength for something beyond personal benefit. Maybe it's mentoring others in their internal wars. Maybe it's building something that serves people. Maybe it's creating work that adds value. Maybe it's leading in a way that elevates others. Maybe it's being fully present for relationships in ways you couldn't be when you were consumed by internal struggle. The specific form matters less than the direction. The direction is outward. From how do I win my war to what do I do with this victory? And here's what's fascinating. Contributing beyond yourself actually strengthens your internal war victory, not despite being focused elsewhere. Because of it, when you're purely focused on personal development, there's a subtle self-centeredness that can actually limit growth. You're always monitoring yourself, always measuring yourself, always focused inward. And that inward focus, while necessary initially, eventually becomes limiting. But when you shift to contribution, when you use your developed capacity to serve something larger, the self-monitoring quiets. You're too busy doing to constantly evaluate yourself. And paradoxically, this produces more growth than pure self-focus ever could. The warrior who fights only for themselves has powerful motivation, but limited scope. The warrior who fights for something larger than themselves has unlimited motivation and expanding scope. This doesn't mean abandoning personal development. It means embedding personal development within larger purpose. You continue developing because that development serves something beyond you. You continue winning internal battles because those victories enable external contribution. And here's what this solves: the meaning question, the what's the point question, the quiet sense that winning your internal war, while valuable, isn't quite enough. When you're fighting only for yourself, motivation can wane. When things are going well, when you're winning consistently, the urgency decreases. Why keep fighting so hard when things are already good enough? But when you're fighting for something larger, when other people benefit from your strength, when your internal victory enables external contribution, the motivation is perpetual. It doesn't wane because it's not dependent on your personal state. It's dependent on the ongoing need for contribution. This is how warriors avoid the trap of achieving victory and then gradually losing it through complacency. Not by forcing motivation, not by creating artificial urgency, but by connecting internal victory to external purpose, by making sure your developed strength serves something beyond its own maintenance. Let me give you a practical framework for this transition. First, ensure foundation is solid. Don't rush this transition. Don't move beyond personal victory prematurely. If your internal war is still primarily consuming your energy, if you're still in stage 2 or early stage 3, if victories are still inconsistent, you're not ready. Premature external focus is escape, not evolution. It's using contribution as distraction from internal work that still needs doing, and that always backfires. External contribution requires internal foundation. Build foundation first. But once foundation is solid, once you're winning consistently, once the internal war requires maintenance rather than constant active fighting, then you're ready for the transition. Second, identify natural contribution. What do you have that others need? What strength have you developed that could serve others? What battles have you won that you could help others win? This isn't about forcing contribution in areas that don't fit. It's about recognizing where your developed capacity naturally extends beyond yourself, where your strength could flow outward without fabrication or force. Maybe you've overcome anxiety. Others struggle with anxiety. Your victory could help them. Maybe you've built discipline. Others lack discipline. Your capacity could inspire them. Maybe you've developed a specific skill. Others need that skill. Your competence could serve them. The contribution doesn't have to be grand, doesn't have to be formal, doesn't have to be career-defining. It just has to be real. Genuine application of what you've developed for benefit beyond yourself. Third, start small and expand. Don't try to save the world. Start with one person, one conversation, one situation where your developed strength could make a difference. Help someone fight their battle. Share what you've learned. Give what you've developed. Not to get credit, not to be recognized, but because you can, because you have something worth giving, because your internal victory enables external contribution. Then notice what happens, how it feels to use your strength beyond yourself, how the contribution affects them, how it affects you, whether this direction feels right or forced. If it feels right, expand. More people, more situations, more consistent contribution. If it feels forced, adjust. Find different form, different application, different context. The goal isn't perfect contribution. It's authentic contribution, using what you've genuinely developed to genuinely serve. Fourth, protect your foundation. Here's the trap, becoming so focused on external contribution that you neglect internal maintenance, giving so much to others that you deplete yourself, serving so constantly that you stop fighting your own war. This is noble in intention but disastrous in outcome, because without maintained internal foundation, your external contribution deteriorates. You can't give what you don't have, can't help others when wars you're losing, can't contribute strength you're not maintaining. So even as you expand beyond personal victory, you maintain personal practice. You keep fighting your internal war. You continue daily rhythm. You protect your foundation because that foundation enables everything else. This isn't selfishness. This is sustainability. You're not choosing between serving yourself and serving others. You're recognizing that serving yourself enables serving others. That internal strength creates external capacity. That personal victory produces public contribution. The warrior who's won their internal war and contributed nothing has wasted their victory. The warrior who tries to contribute without winning their internal war has nothing real to give. But the warrior who wins internally and contributes externally, that's the complete warrior. That's the evolved form. That's the ultimate expression of warrior development. You're becoming that warrior. Your internal victories are accumulating. Your foundation is strengthening. Your capacity is expanding. And soon, if not already, you'll start looking beyond personal victory toward larger contribution. When that happens, don't resist it. Don't think you're abandoning your internal work. You're evolving it, expanding it, extending it beyond yourself. The war inside your mind trained you. Now use that training for something larger. Fight your internal war so you can contribute to external wars. Win your battles so you can help others win theirs. Develop your strength so you can share that strength. This is the evolution beyond personal victory. This is where the war becomes training ground instead of final destination. This is where warrior development fulfills its ultimate purpose. You're ready, or you will be soon. And when you are, the world needs what you've developed. The people around you need the strength you've built. The battles you've won qualify you to help others win their battles. Don't hoard your victory. Use it. Share it. Extend it. Let your internal strength flow outward. Let your personal victory enable public contribution. Let your warrior development serve something larger than itself. This is the complete path. Internal victory. External contribution. The war within training you for the wars beyond. Your mind as foundation for everything you build in the world. Fight well. Win consistently. Then give generously. That's the warrior's complete journey. Chapter 12. The long game. Most people think in days. Warriors think in years. Most people want immediate results. Warriors build lasting capacity. Most people quit when progress is invisible. Warriors trust the compound effect. This is the long game. And the long game is how wars are truly won. The enemy wants you thinking short-term. Wants you expecting quick transformation. Wants you discouraged when change isn't immediate. Because short-term thinking produces short-term effort. And short-term effort produces minimal results. And minimal results produce discouragement. And discouragement produces quitting. The enemy wins through attrition. Not by defeating you in individual battles. By making you give up before the compound effect produces victory. But warriors understand compound effect. Understand that small consistent actions over long time periods produce enormous results. Understand that patience isn't passive. It's strategic. Let me show you what the long game actually looks like. Year 1, Foundation. The first year is entirely about foundation. Learning the basics. Establishing rhythm. Building initial momentum. Surviving early sieges. Accumulating first evidence. Moving from stage 2 towards stage 3. This year feels slow. Progress is often invisible day to day. You're learning more than achieving. Building more than displaying. Establishing more than excelling. Most people quit during year 1. Because year 1 doesn't produce impressive results. It produces capacity that will produce impressive results later. But later isn't immediately satisfying. So people abandon the foundation before it supports anything substantial. The warrior completes year 1. Not because it feels good. Because it's necessary. Not because it produces immediate victory. Because it produces eventual mastery. Year 2, Acceleration. Something shifts in year 2. The foundation built in year 1 starts supporting visible progress. Stage 3 becomes consistent. Daily rhythm becomes automatic. Evidence stack becomes undeniable. Momentum becomes obvious. This is when the compound effect becomes visible. The same effort that produced minimal results in year 1 produces significant results in year 2. Not because the effort changed. Because the foundation now exists. People who quit during year 1 never experience this acceleration. They never discover that the slow progress of year 1 was actually building capacity for rapid progress in year 2. They conclude the method doesn't work right before it was about to work dramatically. The warrior experiences year 2 acceleration and understands the foundation mattered. The slow build was essential. The invisible progress of year 1 enabled the visible progress of year 2. Year 3, Consolidation. Year 3 is about making temporary gains permanent. About moving successes from conscious effort to automatic capacity. About transitioning from stage 3 towards stage 4. This year is about depth more than breadth. About mastering what you've learned rather than learning new things. About establishing new patterns so deeply that they become default. This year can feel less exciting than year 2. Year 2 had obvious acceleration. Year 3 has subtle deepening. But this deepening is what makes everything lasting. What prevents backsliding? What ensures the gains stick? Many people get bored during year 3. They've experienced acceleration. They want more acceleration. They start looking for new methods, new approaches, new excitement, and they abandon consolidation right before reaching true mastery. The warrior completes year 3, recognizes that lasting change requires consolidation, that mastery is depth, not just breadth, that stage 4 requires patience even after stage 3 has been achieved. Year 4 and beyond, mastery and extension. After 3 years of consistent practice, something remarkable happens. The war inside your mind becomes background, not gone, not finished, but managed, automatic, foundational. You're no longer constantly fighting just to maintain position. You're winning so consistently that you can focus on extension, on contribution, on building beyond yourself, on using your developed strength for larger purposes. This is when the long game pays off fully, not just with personal victory, with capacity to contribute, with foundations solid enough to support building, with internal strength sufficient to enable external impact. But most people never reach year 4. They quit during year 1 when foundation feels slow, or during year 2 when they expect perpetual acceleration, or during year 3 when consolidation feels boring. They never experience the payoff of the long game because they never play the long game. They play the short game, and the short game produces short results, temporary changes, surface improvements, quick fixes that don't last. The warrior plays the long game, not because it's easy, because it works, not because it's exciting, because it produces lasting transformation, not because it gives immediate satisfaction, because it builds permanent capacity. Here's what the long game requires: patience with the process, understanding that lasting change is slow, that foundations take time, that compound effect is real but delayed, that invisible progress is still progress. This doesn't mean passive waiting. It means active effort without expectation of immediate dramatic results. It means trusting that small, consistent actions accumulate into significant outcomes, even when you can't see accumulation happening. Consistency over intensity. The long game isn't won through heroic efforts. It's won through daily decent efforts, through showing up, through executing basics, through maintaining rhythm. One intense week followed by 3 weeks off produces less than 4 weeks of moderate consistent effort. Consistency beats intensity. Always. Because consistency compounds. Intensity doesn't. Identity over outcomes. The long game is about becoming someone, not achieving something. About identity transformation, not goal achievement. About growing into a different version of yourself, not just accomplishing tasks. When you focus on identity, becoming a warrior, becoming someone who wins their internal war, becoming someone who maintains daily discipline, the outcomes handle themselves. But when you focus only on outcomes, identity never shifts. And without identity shift, outcomes are temporary. Trajectory over position. At any given moment, your current position might look unimpressive, but position matters less than trajectory. Are you moving in the right direction? Are you building capacity? Are you accumulating small wins? Are you staying in the game? If yes, you're winning the long game even when current position doesn't look like victory. Because trajectory produces destination. Current position is just current. Trajectory is everything. Sustainability over drama. The long game requires sustainable pace. Not maximum effort. Not heroic intensity. Sustainable effort. The kind you can maintain for years. Unsustainable effort produces burnout. Burnout produces quitting. Quitting produces failure. So paradoxically, The way to achieve more is to demand less of yourself daily, while demanding more of yourself long-term. Run at 70% intensity for 4 years, instead of 100% intensity for 4 months. The 4-year warrior achieves infinitely more than the 4-month warrior, even though they're trying less hard at any given moment. The enemy wants you sprinting, because sprinters burn out. The ally wants you marathon running, because marathon runners finish. Let me be direct about what the long game means practically. It means you're still practicing these principles 5 years from now, still fighting the war inside your mind, still maintaining daily rhythm, still redirecting attention, still countering enemy attacks, still choosing the ally, still documenting victories. Not because you haven't made progress, because you've made enough progress to know this is permanent practice, not temporary fix. Because you've experienced enough results to trust continued effort. Because you've built enough foundation to know maintenance is required. It means you don't expect to be done. Don't expect to reach a point where the war ends and practice stops. Don't expect permanent victory that requires no ongoing effort. It means you accept that this is lifelong work, that mastery is maintained, not achieved once, and then automatic forever. That the long game doesn't end. It just gets easier. And here's what makes this acceptable, even exciting. The long game produces results the short game cannot. 5 years of consistent practice produces capacity that 5 months of intense effort never will. 10 years of maintained daily rhythm produces mastery that 10 months of heroic effort cannot touch. The long game isn't just more effective. It's the only thing that produces lasting transformation. Everything else is temporary change, surface movement, quick improvement that quickly regresses. So play the long game. Commit to years, not weeks. Trust the compound effect. Maintain daily rhythm. Build slowly and solidly. Accept that progress is often invisible. Believe that consistent effort accumulates even when you can't feel it. 5 years from now, you'll look back at today and see how far you've traveled, how much you've evolved, how different you've become, and you'll be grateful you played the long game instead of quitting during year 1. The warrior's path isn't quick, but it's sure, not dramatic, but dependable, not exciting every day, but triumphant over time. Play the long game. It's the only game that produces what you actually want. Lasting transformation, permanent capacity, genuine mastery, complete victory. Start today. Continue tomorrow. Maintain for years. Win permanently. That's the long game. That's how warriors win wars. That's how you win this war. Chapter 13. The Point of No Return. There's a moment in every warrior's journey that changes everything. Not the moment you start, not the moment you first win, but the moment you realize you're different now. Fundamentally different, permanently different, and you cannot go back to who you were even if you wanted to. This is the point of no return, and reaching it is inevitable if you continue the practices. But most people don't continue long enough to reach it. They quit before they cross this threshold, and they never discover what lies beyond it. Let me describe this moment so you'll recognize it when it arrives. You'll be in a situation that would have defeated the old you completely. A situation that would have activated every old pattern, every limiting belief, every self-sabotaging response. The enemy would have dominated. The old version of you would have collapsed. But this time, you don't collapse. You respond differently. Not through force, not through remembering to apply techniques, but automatically, naturally, as if your default response has changed without you noticing the change happening. The enemy still speaks, but its voice carries no weight. The old thoughts still appear, but you observe them without believing them. The old patterns still activate, but they don't control you. And in that moment, you realize something has fundamentally shifted. You're not the person you were. You've crossed a threshold. You've passed the point of no return. This realization often comes quietly, not dramatically. You might be handling a work crisis, or navigating a relationship challenge, or facing a personal setback, and you simply handle it differently than you would have before, more effectively than the old you could have. And afterward you notice, I didn't have to try hard to respond that way. That's just how I responded. That's who I am now. That's the point of no return. That's when temporary practice becomes permanent transformation. That's when conscious competence becomes unconscious competence. That's when the warrior identity stops being aspirational and becomes actual. Once you cross this threshold, several things become true that weren't true before. First, the old you becomes impossible. You cannot return to old patterns even if you wanted to. Not because you're preventing yourself through discipline, because those patterns are no longer compatible with who you've become. They're like clothes that don't fit anymore. You physically cannot wear them. This doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean you never struggle. Doesn't mean the enemy has no influence. It means your baseline has shifted permanently. Your default has changed. Your automatic responses have been reprogrammed. The old you would have automatically believed limiting thoughts. The new you automatically questions them. The old you would have avoided challenges. The new you automatically engages them, not through effort, through evolution. Second, backsliding becomes temporary. Before the point of no return, backsliding is dangerous. You can lose weeks or months of progress quickly, can slip back into old patterns easily, can undo gains without realizing it's happening. After the point of no return, backsliding is temporary and recoverable. You might have a bad day, a bad week, even a bad month, but you don't lose your foundation. Don't forget who you've become. Don't regress permanently. The new patterns are too deeply established. The new identity is too solid. The new automatic responses are too ingrained. You might drift temporarily, but you return quickly. The point of no return creates a kind of psychological gravity that pulls you back to your new baseline. Third, practice becomes preference. Before the point of no return, practice is discipline. You do it because you should, because it works, because you've committed to it. But often requires force, requires remembering, requires will. After the point of no return, practice becomes preference. You do it because you want to, because it feels right, because not doing it feels wrong. The discipline has become desire. The should has become want. This isn't about becoming addicted to practices. It's about practices aligning with identity. You practice because it's what someone like you does, not someone you're trying to become, someone you've become. Fourth, influence becomes natural. Before the point of no return, if you try to help others with their wars, it feels forced. You're sharing concepts you've learned but haven't fully embodied. You're teaching principles you believe but haven't mastered. After the point of no return, influence becomes natural. You've embodied the principles so thoroughly that they flow from you without effort. People notice something different about you and want to know what it is. Your presence itself becomes instructive. This isn't about becoming a teacher. It's about becoming living proof. Proof that transformation is real, that the war can be won, that lasting change is possible. Your existence demonstrates what words can only describe. Fifth, the war continues, but the terror ends. The enemy doesn't disappear after the point of no return. Attacks continue. Challenges persist. Difficult moments still occur. The war remains active, but the terror ends. The fear that you might lose everything. The worry that one bad day could undo all progress. The anxiety that you're one mistake away from complete regression. That ends. Because you've proven to yourself that your foundation is real, that your transformation is genuine, that your capacity is permanent. The evidence is undeniable. The proof is lived. The change is actual. You still fight, but you fight from a position of established strength rather than desperate survival. You still counter enemy attacks